Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our first game in the best of 9 here at the Acer Team Story Cup Season 3. We have a Zerg versus Protoss in our first game today between Axiom Esports and the Joey FlashWolves. Starting to the bottom left of the map here on the Korean server, we have our Korean Protoss player. It is Crank, the starting player for Team Axiom, and he's going up against a Zerg player. On Overgrowth, to the bottom top right, we have Leenock for the Joey FlashWolves, and this should be a pretty intense match between the two of them. Not only talking about the players here, but also talking about the teams. Especially Axiom is of course one of those teams that did really well in the last season, but this season they are struggling a little bit. At this point they don't have a single win just yet. We're only in the third week of the tournament of the league, but at the same time Axiom Esports, they lost both of their matches, and for the Joey FlashWolves it's exactly the opposite. They have been doing really well. They were able to take both of the games that they played so far. They're currently on the second rank in the standings with a +9 indicator, whereas Crank and his fellow teammates are at a -3 indicator, all the way at the bottom of the ranking. Well, maybe not quite, but at least in the lower 10%. So we are currently in a situation where they need a couple of points, and in the last few matches the FlashWolves haven't even sent out Leenock and San. They were going straight for the Taiwanese lineup, and you could really see already that the players that we have there for Taiwan are doing a very good job as well, because especially Ian and Has have been delivering quite a couple of points to the team. So right now the FlashWolves have a bit of momentum gain in the league, and they really want to go all the way. For Crank and his teammates, it's time to step things up a little bit and bring their A game so that they can take down Leenock and of course his comrades, at least in this match. Overgrowth is one of the new maps that we have in the map pool. Is one of those maps that was actually like really chosen quite a lot. I just came back today from Denmark, was commentating in Copenhagen at the Copenhagen Games, the StarCraft 2 tournament, and they of course already used the new maps, and most of the players decided to veto different maps. Overgrowth was like one of the maps that we had in basically every single best of 3 or best of 5. So it seemed really like players don't mind this map too much. We'll have to find out in the future if that's only because they think it's the lesser evil, or if it's one of those maps that is really balanced. At this point we have Leenock starting things off with double hatch, actually going for a hatch here immediately at the gold base, and to be quite honest with you, that is ballsy as fuck. I mean, look at this kid. Leenock is he's a little bit like the Michelin kid. I have no idea how you pronounce that in English, but Leenock is gaining so much weight these days. He's a little bit of a panda bear, like the Zerg panda bear there. And well, we always joke when I see him at the studio. We say like, "Hey, dude, you need to do some workout," and I'm really happy to be a personal trainer. But he's like, "No, way too hard. I need to eat more." So yeah, Leenock is. Yeah, he's actually gaining a little bit too much weight. He needs to be careful. The kid is pretty young, so that's going to be difficult. But he's an awesome StarCraft 2 player, and is also a very cheery person. A super happy fella. If you've ever met him, he's a really nice guy. And he's completely fooled. Oh no, okay, Crank saw it. For a second I really thought that that probe was not in vision range of the hatch, and that he didn't know. That would have been absolutely devastating for Crank. I mean, it couldn't have gotten any worse than that. But Crank knows what's going on, and that's of course, that's the first step to victory. Leenock pretty ballsy in this scenario. To be honest, I did not expect him to take this base so fast, because it's so far away from the third and the natural. It's super difficult to really spread the creep this far that you can connect those two bases. If you really want to do that, I think you are bound to just go in here, put a creep tumor over there, put another one right over here, and spread creep from 2 directions, so that you can help out with the queens maybe a little bit faster, and also with the rest of the units. I don't know, like it's really going to be difficult for Leenock to hold this base if Crank wants to be aggressive on it, and I guess that's exactly what we're going to see. For the Protoss player, all the way at the bottom we have the double gateway now at the front. That's of course then the third gateway, and he could just decide to go for a little bit of 3-gate pressure. Could even just add a 4th if he wanted to, and go straight for that base right over here. For Leenock it would of course been a little bit better if there would maybe even a forge opening for Crank or something like that, but Leenock just decides to go for the third base. After all, his double gas already taken, wants to have that speed upgrade and also the tech, and look at that, we have him immediately going for the Roach Warren. So far, not even, well, I don't want to say not even bothering with speed, because he doesn't have the gas just yet. He's of course going to get speed as soon as he can. And yeah, I talked about it already. Additional gateways coming down, 5 gates in total now for Crank in just a little bit. And this base is on the extinction list right now. the endangered species. Those two queens at the front, of course, already trying to get some energy and help out here, but this is gonna get pretty ugly. On the other hand, what Leenock does is he is at 47 harvesters. I really think that considering what he's doing here, it might even be a little bit too much, because we see a lot of players, if they take the gold base, just saturating this base fully, keep the drone count very, very low at the beginning, making sure that they get the army so that they can hold these bases and then drone up again. Usually if you have like 3 bases that are very close to each other with blue mineral patches, that's a very low harvester count that we see there. But with an expansion that is so much exposed, it might not really be enough for him. But I guess we're gonna find out, because we have now Crank moving out as already suspected. If we just look at the army supply, he's still at 20, but he has a lot of warp in potential there, whereas Leenock is still waiting for his speed upgrade to finish and also for the lair tech to hit. So the mothership core just having a quick look here, granting high ground vision already, and this is gonna get very nasty soon, because Crank, he has committed. He needs to do something. He kind of just simply turn around and say like, yeah, alright, I'm gonna let you have the space and I'm gonna take another one on my own. He needs to do something here. This is already the commitment that we see by him, and it's about time. We have one cannon at the front, making sure that the run by is not going to be the very worst thing. One queen already dead, and we have the force fields and also the time warp entering the battle. But Crank, let's look at his army supply, 30 against 55. Still doesn't have that +1 attack upgrade, and Leenock might be safe here after all. It looks pretty decent for him so far. Didn't commit to too many harvesters anymore. 45, that's where he stopped it. So, yeah, I was a little bit afraid he would go up to 50 or even 60. Takes down that 1 power at the front. So for Leenock, things are actually looking pretty decent right now. Is able to hold here, can now drone up again if he wants to. Plays it safe on the other hand, just making sure that he has also spine crawlers in the mix. And with those spine crawlers, he will be super safe. And for Crank, this is like a pretty shitty situation. Because what happens here is like Crank decided to go for 5 gates and just say like, yeah, I'm gonna take that base, I'm gonna punish you, I'm gonna take the third, and he sacrificed tech for that. He's now going into Blink and also the robotics, but before that he didn't have that. We are already nearly 10 minutes in. So for Leenock, who's on lair tech, who's taking a 4th base, this is absolutely great. And Crank is just basically looking here and saying like, yeah, fuck my life. I mean, what I'm gonna do right now. So he's not gonna be too happy about this, not being able to do anything here. Leenock having that timing down cold, and as you could see, him stopping at 45 harvesters really did the trick there. I saw a few players that said earlier, even stopping before that and trying to saturate the goal heavier, but for him it worked out absolutely beautiful. So great timing by Leenock and a very crisp build that he played there. Definitely something that he practiced quite a bit, and we have him now at the same time where we see a bit of scans going down. Sorry, not scans, but of course scouts. With another hatch being built. And the one thing they want to do with your Leenock, which is like the dream come true, is if you can cancel that 3rd base. And he's going in with a couple of Zerglings, trying to bait a few force fields. Not quite yet, but yeah. Taking the 3rd would maybe be a little bit too much, but Leenock has all the time in the world now. He's heading on to 4 bases, and he is also now on better army supply. Can get upgrades, because if you look at it, he doesn't even have upgrades. He doesn't even have evolution chamber. This is basically one of the things that comes with a territory. If you go for a strategy like this, you kind of forgo the upgrades early on a little bit, because you want to have the fast attack and you have your units out there. And then you go for the upgrades a little bit later. So I guess we're gonna most likely see a double evolution chamber pretty soon. With that 4th base, he can definitely afford it. I mean, if you just look at the back that he has, it's 130. Well, actually, there's the cancel. Crank deciding that he cannot hold this, that there's too much. But I'm a little bit curious to actually why he canceled there. I think he can hold with what he has. Goes in, a nice force fields against the roaches, trapping them and taking them out. And that was a really interesting cancel that we saw there by Crank. He didn't want to fight there, and like for a second I thought it might be a misclick, but I think he really was afraid he could not hold this base. But to me it's a bit interesting that he did that, because I feel he could have held this. Well, be it as it may, he decided to cancel it, and now we have of course Leenock with a bigger force here, trying to just make that work. The problem for him, for Crank, is that him canceling this base basically means he needs to win it kind of with this army now. And he has a pretty big army, don't get me wrong. With him attacking now, he can of course invest those additional resources that he has into more units, and that puts him up to 93 army supply. But it's not really a whole lot, it's more about the loss of potential income that he has there. But yeah, he's really trying to make it work with this army now, not trying to play the catch-up game, so the 400 minerals really coming back to help him a bit with additional zealots. He has a pretty sick army, and Leenock just decides to sack that base here. He wants to wait a little bit longer until he has the rest of his army out there, and that's probably not a bad choice, because we already have for his opponent if you look at the army, the +2 attack upgrade. So Crank just going for the cancel and saying like, yeah, I never really intended to take the third in the first place. That is also confirmed by his harvest account with 54, so he never really seriously meant to take it. Goes for the cancel and tries to move in, try to take Leenock right now, and he has a pretty good shot at doing this, but the army for Leenock is just going cross map and trying to break through. Leenock is going for the Muralists now, and that will give him a lot of flexibility later on, but he doesn't really have a whole lot of bases across the map. He would really do well just putting maybe a hatch down at the bottom right if you wanted to, or something like this. But for now, Leenock just going into more and more Mutalists, trying to make that work so that he can really dance around his opponent and use his superior mobility in the end, because the base race is on, and so far we have a lot of DPS by Crank with those additional Immortals. Leenock doing a great job at the beginning, but Crank with his Nexus cancel actually bringing himself in a much better position as I thought he would be. And this is looking not too shabby for him. He has really the potential to take down Leenock's base a lot faster, since those Immortals alone are already doing quite some damage. And then you have, of course, the Stalkers as well with the +2 attack upgrade. The main base is already about to be sacrificed. Leenock just rushing in, and it's all about the Mutalists in the end here. Let's have a quick look at that Spire. That's actually in the main base, so that's going to go down very, very soon. And the Mutalist numbers are not going to matter too much here. If you have only 7 of those, that's not going to win you the battle, and I think a few of them spawned here at the X so that the Stalkers could kill them immediately. Boy, Recall! Nice, wants to save his base, yeah, after all. Recall's back, and I don't think that Leenock can take this. Leenock is losing way too much. His army composition just doesn't scale that well into the late game. He was hoping for a completely different match here and was absolutely blindsided by Crank's commitment. Did not realize that Crank had such a huge army. Leenock is losing way too much here at this point. He's down to 18 army supply against 57. We have a few units of Crank over at that base, and there's the GG. Leenock with an amazingly good start into the game, but Crank outmaneuvering him a little bit in the late game. Just like the strategy that he chose there, something that Leenock didn't expect, and very well done by Crank. I didn't even catch on that. He was preparing this, and this is a very nice decision that he made here. Props to Crank for really pulling this one off, because Leenock had a super solid position there with his massive economy, but his units didn't scale into the late game, and Leenock expected just a completely different playstyle from Crank. So Crank with a first win for Axiom Esports. Great job here by him, taking out Leenock early on. Very, very important win for his team. Now let's find out who the Joey FlashWolves send out next.